Welcome to another Make Loud Monday. On this week's episode, we're going to talk about some different recording techniques using Studio One version 6. Some of these are new techniques, some of them are old techniques, and some of them have nothing to do with Studio One at all. Stick around and find out more. So as you can see by the little icon on the screen, it's weird because it's backwards. I'm pointing over here, but it's over there. I guess that's just so I don't get confused, but it appears not to be working because I am confused. Anyway, we're doing this today as an episode of my series Hot Shit because I am going to be featuring a new song that I'm working on. But I'm not as much, as always, very happy to have anyone's feedback about the songs themselves. But that's not entirely the purpose of this video, and instead of me asking for feedback, I'm going to be sharing some interesting techniques that I used for this particular song. And the first one that I'm going to start with is sort of what the genesis of this song was. So, as so often happens, I was in between meetings. I work from home, so I'm basically in this chair all day. Surrounded by all of my guitars and other recording and musical things. And so whenever I have a few minutes of break, sometimes just to settle myself down or to get an idea down, I'll pick up a guitar. And this particular time, I picked up Kitty, which is the guitar that I have. It's High Strung or Nashville Strung. So it has on it basically the high set of strings from a 12 string. And I had this little riff in mind, which was just... And that became the starting of the song. And it's not anything very different, or very challenging. It's just some basic cowboy chords, I guess they call it. So, it's a E, D, sus4, G, A. So, 4 chords, nothing too challenging there. But the Nashville tuning just gives it a very different character. And another word for Nashville, some call it Nashville, some call it high strung. Technically, there is a difference. If you want to learn more about that, I think Rhett Schull has a nice video about it where he talks about, basically the difference is high strung. I think the G is still the lower octave, and Nashville tuning, it's higher octave, or maybe I have that backwards. Frankly, I don't care. I have it this way, so the 4 strings, E, A, D, G, are all an octave higher than a standard tuning guitar. So it's... And you can show that off. So in the second part of the song, it's so it's really just the same chords, just letting them ring out, letting you hear that naturally kind of that different position, that inversion, I guess, of those chords. So that's the first thing, is just to have different tunings around. I think I said this last week in terms of 5 things that you should do to 5 different things you should have in your studio. Have guitars and instruments in different tunings that are going to give you different ways to express familiar old ideas and make them fresh again. So that's the first thing. Do that. Make sure you get yourself, if you have a guitar that is kind of just the same old thing but a different color or a different shape or a different name on the headstock, get a set of Nashville strings. Stringjoy has packages of them, but I'm sure other manufacturers do. And throw those on there and play those chords. And you'll see how much more fun that is. So that's kind of the only part of this that takes place outside of Studio One. On the thumbnail for the video, I'm talking about things you can do in Studio One version 6. So we're going to flip over to Studio One, the Studio One camera view, and then I'll start showing you some stuff in there. Okay, so we're over in the Studio One view, and the first thing that I wanted to show you was, here, we'll listen to a little bit of the recording of the song. I'm going to just focus on guitar. So far, I haven't done any bass tracks. You can see there's nothing colored in here. And I haven't done anything using my MIDI keyboard. I call that synth, but in here is where I have, you know, like basically my piano, synth, some strings, and some other choir instruments. I'm not sure if I'm going to. I leave stuff in until I'm sure I'm not going to need it, and then I get rid of it. And I have done some percussion tracks, but let's just focus for now on, we'll mute the percussion, we'll mute the vocal, and let's take a look at the guitar. So you can see that I've done a lot of guitar tracks. So these first two here, this is just what you've heard so far. All right, so you're all familiar with that. But I wanted to start the song out with something that kind of invited the listener into the song itself. So I figured, let me think of the song as being inside and the listener is outside, and I'm going to bring them in. So I wanted to use kind of a different technique, and so I used the verse part, which is just those kind of open strummed chords, but I put a plugin on it. So let's unmute this, and I'm going to put my headphones on so I can listen along with you. And this is what we have. And I am going to quickly change the sample rate because you can hear my computer is starting to choke on this. So always remember, low sample rate is low latency for while you're recording. High sample rate is better performance while you're mixing. So now I can show you how I did that. So I'm going to open up the mix panel, and you can see I have these two guitar channels here that I'm calling Kitty 2. It's actually the same guitar, no effects chain outside, but within I've got I've got a plugin that I'm using called Mix Checker Pro. And I think for you to see my plugins, I have to use a different view. So let's go to this one here, Display Capture, and back over here. Okay, so I think over here, so now I think you can see my plugin. So when I open up Mix Checker, and it takes a minute to open, this is one that can be used to check your mix. In fact, you can see that I have it also over here in my my master bus, but not going to focus on that right now. So if I come back to this version of Mix Checker, there are a variety of different basically EQ simulations here that you have, and then there's also this button here that says noise. And so what I did was, on one channel I had it on Exterior Street 2, and on the other one I have it on Exterior Street 1. So if you listen on your headphones like I'm doing right now, you'll hear that there's two different exterior canned soundtracks, and they kind of just cycle over and over, so I never really know exactly what I'm going to get. But that really doesn't matter. Like, I'm not doing like artistic sound design with, you know, which sounds of walking and wind and leaves and voices, and there's a motorbike somewhere in there. That doesn't matter. It really, I just wanted to give it some dimension. So you'll hear that, and there's also something that I'm doing with that effect. So let me pin this effect here so we continue to see it. And the other thing that I want to show you is I do a little bit of automation. So you can see that these reed lights here, these green reed lights and this curve here, says that there's some sort of automation happening on this track. And what that automation is, if I close this window, oh, and there's a bunch of other automation to be shown, is the noise level. So it's controlling this noise parameter. So watch that noise parameter right over here, pointing to it, as the music starts playing. So you see how it goes up, and then ramps back down. And then again at the end of the song, there's a lot more going on here. Whoops. Let me zoom this out a little bit so you can see it a little better. So if I bring it all the way over here, we'll listen to the very last bit of the song. So you can see here at the end, we're going to ramp up again, and we're going to ramp down a little bit longer curve, and then here's our end marker for the song. So it's going to stay high. You can see all the other waveforms are dropping off, and then it's just going to roll out. And then it rolls off. So while I often use this as kind of a mix checking, hence the name, mix checking tool at the end of the process, here I'm using that feature with the exterior noise, and I'm using the two different EQ curves. So one is like a television set, and here I'll bring it back up. And the other one I think is like a simulated iPhone. Yeah, you can see the other one is like a simulated iPhone. So that's what the two of them are. And you can also add other different features to it. You can bring it down to a mono signal, add distortion and clipping. It's a pretty cool plugin. It's one of the few ones that I've actually paid a couple bucks for. I forget how much it was, 30 bucks or so. But it's helped me solve a problem, and it's also given me the opportunity to do some kind of artistic and musical things with it. So let's close that down. So that's one of the things I did, was to use that mix checker plugin to add that sort of outside-in effect. And here we'll listen to it with without the soloing on, but we'll still mute the drums and the voice. That organ sound that you heard there, that's actually not an organ. That's this old dog here, the Electro-Harmonix B9 organ simulator pedal, organ machine. Really cool pedal, lots of fun, and if you ever get a chance to pick one up, I think that's actually one of the first pedals I got. I would suggest it because it's fun to play with. Anyway, but that's kind of how it sounds in the mix. So in addition, to the in addition to having the mix checker plugin running, I also had an EQ curve going and this bit crusher plugin here. Let me switch my view again to that beloved display capture and come back over to here. So if I open this up, you can see. So for EQ, I just basically focused only on these mid-range frequencies from about 100 up to 5K, just a simple bell curve, so that whenever that second guitar is playing, and here we'll go back to the beginning, you can see, kind of which frequencies are being presented there. And then this bit crusher plugin, I used the hot cable setting. Really like this setting because it gave me like a little bit of distortion. So I'm going to turn it on and off, and you can hopefully hear the difference. So let's go back to the beginning and do it again, and we'll turn that on and off a couple times. So you can hear how it gives it a lot more like almost like a rusty knife kind of edge to it. Really like that. So that was another part of that sort of outside in, was to have the same instrument but kind of different sounds. So when it was outside, it was a little rougher, a little sharper, and then when we came inside, a little bit more polished, a little smoother. So let's move on to the next thing, and you can kind of see, because I'm showing the automation here, the next thing is some panning that I did. So let's zoom out or zoom in a little bit, and you can see that there are 4 more tracks here plus an effects channel that have automation on them, and you can see these very square waved drawings here that indicate how the panning is happening. And you can tell it's panning if you look over here in these drop-down lists. It says pan left, right. And then this one has 2 different panning parameters on it, left and right. And there's a very faint gray line for the other one, which you can see if you look here. Anyway, so what I have here is basically 4 tracks of the same little riff. This is played on a different guitar, a standard tuning that is not high strung, that is just regular E, low E through high E stringing of a little solo riff, and it's the same couple of notes 4 times in a row. And rather than varying it up and doing, some sort of narrative storytelling through note selection, what I wanted to get across here was motion in space. So I have the same lick playing in 4 different positions throughout the room. At first it starts out, kind of hard left, all the way right, hard right, all the way left. So if we listen to it, you'll hear, and pay particular attention to the solo. And again, if you have headphones, you'll get this more clearly. And let's do that again, but this time I'm going to leave the mixing console open. And again, you can see kind of what the default position is for all the panning. You can see it right here on your screen. These these 4 yellow channels and then this light gray channel right here to the right of them. And just watch how the panning parameters change as we go through each of the 4 repeats of that sound. So I'll point to it. So that's just, again, doing some simple automation so that you can see how I change the position. There is no track for an effects channel by default in Studio One. You can see this effects channel has a track, but none of the others do. But if I go back to the mixing console, you can see that there's an effects channel for Kitty 2 where I'm doing some stuff. Oh, I didn't even go into this. I'll come back to that. So there's some stuff happening on that, but there's no track that I can do automation on it unless I put that in. So again, I could right click on something and add an automation track and then have full control over it. So by doing that automation on the panning and moving the perceived location of that solo around, I thought it made it a little bit more interesting without having to compose a variety of different measures of notes. So that was what I was looking for there. So the next thing, so we talked about mix checker, we talked about panning. All right, so you can see up here at the top of the screen, let's switch back to a more normal view. Okay, so you can see here at the top of the screen these little boxes here with some words in them. And this is one of the new features of Studio One 6 that I think I'm going to get a lot of use out of. I don't know if anybody else is, but for me it's super helpful. And what you can do is you can actually attribute a line of lyrics to a position in the song. So right now, when my playhead is on bar 23, this line of lyrics is where that comes in, and you can hear it. Oops. Actually, I have to turn the lyrics on for you to do that. So here, let me turn the vocals on. So you can see as we get here, that's when we're going to start hearing the vocals. This thing has got me on the run. I can't help but feeling high strung. You say that it's just for fun. I can't help but feeling high strung. So the mixing probably sounds a little bit weird. Like I said, I'm still working on this song, but that's where this lyrics function comes in. So I had some ideas for the lyrics. The song is actually called High Strung. It's, not very imaginative titling, but because it came from the idea of playing a riff on a high-strung guitar. But that was kind of what I wanted to do. So here we have the lyrics, and if we want to see the lyrics, we can do this. I think I have to switch views again. So to see the lyrics, we have to hit this little L button here, and then it opens up this window where the lyrics are presented. And it's almost like a karaoke screen, so that while the head is going along, I think something has begun. I can't help but feeling high strung. Maybe you could be the one. I can't help but feeling high strung. So you can see how it's like blue while it's playing. This thing has got me on the run. I can't help but feeling high strung. You say that it's just for fun. So that's how it works. Is once it's moved on to the next one, it turns it gray. While it's doing it, it's blue, and when it's coming up, it's still white. I think it's super helpful. And you can format it here by using this edit pencil, so you can go in and add more line breaks if you want. I have not put in the the verse parts. This is just the chorus because that's all I've written so far. But that's what's there. And what's really interesting is that you can actually put lyrics on a particular track. So if you have, and here I'll close this down for now. So down here in my vocals folder, so I have the chorus here. So I could actually put those lyrics on these tracks and then put different lyrics up here on what I would call the lead vocal. Again, this is a new feature. I haven't really used it a whole lot yet, but I'm excited about it. I'm going to continue to tinker with it, and you'll probably see it again in some upcoming videos. Okay, what is the next thing? All right, so on the subject of vocals, there was another technique that I wanted to use. Laundry's done. There was another technique that I wanted to showcase, and I've done this before. I'm getting more in the habit of making this similar to a live recording. So the only musician that is ever represented on a Make Loud song, with one exception so far, is me. So it's always me doing them one at a time and then assembling them after the fact. But I'm starting to get into like putting these effects channels on what I would consider. So like this would be the lead guitar player, or this might be the rhythm guitar. This would be the lead guitar, and then this might be a second guitar player. So they're each going to get their own effects channel, just like they might each have their own effects chain in a traditional studio environment. And likewise, for the chorus vocals, you can see these two channels, or this one channel in fact, because this is intended to represent a second singer, has a couple of other effects on it. So let me open up what these are. So what I'm doing here is I'm running through the Studio One pedal board, and I have a second effect here. Let me put them in the correct order. So here's pedal board, and here's the second effect. So the pedal board is basically a series of different, it's what it says. It's a pedal board. I've got a compressor there to kind of flatten out the dynamics because the dynamics were a little bit all over the place. Then I've got a pitch shifter here, which is just set to octave up. A rat clone pedal here, a chorus effect, and then a noise gate. Just because adding the pitch shifter and the rat created a lot of latent noise in here. So I set the threshold pretty high, and that just takes care of a lot of the junk sounds in there. And then coming out of this pedal board, then we're hitting this this second effect, which is called Little Altar Boy by Sound Toys, you can see. And this is basically just intended to change what's called the formant. So as a formant goes higher, a voice sounds more typically feminine, and as it goes lower, it sounds typically more masculine, or if you go too far in either direction, it goes from Satan to robot, which is, you can, if you want to do noisy things, you can do that. But I wanted it to sound sort of like a second singer, a female singer. So this is the I Can't Help But Feeling High Strung, and it's only the effects channel that has this on it. So the dry signal is still my voice, so it's still the male voice. So let's listen to it. This thing has got me on the run. I can't help but feeling high strung. You say that it's just for fun. I can't help but feeling high strung. I think something has begun. I can't help but feeling high strung. Maybe you can be the one. I can't help but feeling high strung. And what's interesting, you can see right now, like this line here under gate is all the way up because there's just that much latent noise. But when the singing is going on, it goes away because there's enough signal going through. And here's, again, just once what it sounds like. Got me on the run. I can't help but feeling high strung. You say that. soon as it goes off, the gate goes all the way up. So we really needed to put that in there. But this was just, I thought, a really fun way to kind of simulate a second singer. And I know it doesn't sound super realistic. I might re-record it. That was just my scratch take to kind of just lay out how the song is working. But just an interesting technique to use pitch shifting, distortion, chorus, and getting one voice to sound like two. So that's that. So the last thing that I wanted to share with you today, and let me close these down here, was something that I did on the percussion. So here, let's go ahead and turn that on. We'll open up this folder, unmute, open up the folder, and close that mix panel a little bit. You can see that I have two different percussion tracks here, and let's listen to it from the beginning. So this one, the bottom one, is just some percussion sounds. And this is a traditional drum kit. Now the challenge here, and the thing that I wanted to show you, is it doesn't really matter about the drum sounds themselves particularly, but what I wanted to show you was the mapping and how I created this second kit. So if I bring this up, you can see that I have my typical mapping that I always have. Toms on the top, cymbals in the middle. Here's some more cymbals. Here's some snare sounds in this kind of shape here. And then my kick is bottom left. My hi-hats are in the lower right-hand corner. And I like it that way. It keeps it easy for my brain to follow. Now, I wanted to get a second sound. And so I went into the Studio One instruments. Over here on the side is a browse panel. Which maybe you can't see all of it, but like you can see that there's a lot of different instruments down here. And so I picked one of these here, analog auto rhythms, I think, and I dragged it on to a new track, and it came up with a bunch of other instruments. Let's go ahead and just show you how that works. So you can take analog auto rhythms and just drag it in, and Studio One will create a new track for you. And if you want to pull it into your folder, just do it like that. Now it's inside the folder. You can close it and open it, right? And it has all these different samples in it. And this kind of techno sounding kick drum. And I didn't want all of them. So what you can do is you can say, oh, here's a clave that sounds good. You can copy a pad and you can put it over here. And now my clave is over here. So I could build whatever I wanted to from, and I could even go into different settings. So I can go to this drum kit here, and I can copy this pad, and then I can go back to here, this one, and I can paste it right there. And I can change all of these things. It'll only take effect if I save them. If I don't save them, then it won't. So if I close out of this, I go to here, and then I go back to here, that clave isn't there, right? It hasn't copied it over. So it resets and doesn't do any destructive editing unless you want to. But what I wanted to show you and we will remove that track and instrument, is that I created my own percussion. And so I have, in place of where I usually have my toms, I have 4 conga sounds. I didn't want to bring any cymbals in onto this percussion set. You know, I was kind of envisioning who's on my stage, and it was really just someone doing hand drumming. So I had some different hand drumming sounds. And here's a hand drum and a tambourine sound. There is one cymbal there. I ended up not using it. I think I might have used these tom sounds. And then there's a clap sound here that I didn't use, and a techno kick that I didn't use. And I might replace those at some point, but I saved this. So if you go here, you can do store preset, and then you can give it a name and put it in a folder, and it'll save it for you, and then you can use it whenever you want. So now I have this MLNW Perk 1 here that I can save at any time and use it on any other track. So that's a pretty cool little feature. And then, you know, it just gave me the ability to, without having to think a whole lot, like I built my drum kit, that took a little bit of time. But when it came time to start putting it into practice on the track, I still had sort of the same feel that I usually have. Congas up at top, then sort of my accent instruments, which instead of being cymbals were these other percussion sounds. And then instead of snare sounds, I had these kind of rough tom sounds. So build whatever kit you want, I guess, is, you know, there are probably 250 kits included with Studio One's PreSonus Sphere membership, which is what I have, $15 a month. So you get access to everything, and there's all these loop kits for like house and techno music that I never bothered to download because that's not really my thing. But I can go into those instrument packs and create my own different mappings for drum kits anytime I want to. So that's kind of it. So let's go ahead and finish up, and we'll let's just listen to what we have so far.
Got me on the run. I can't help but feeling high strung. You say that it's just for fun. I can't help but feeling high strung. I think something has begun. I can't help but feeling high strung. Maybe you could be the one. I can't help but feeling high strung. Just for fun, I can't help but feeling high strung. I think something has begun. I can't help but feeling high strung. Maybe you could be the one. I can't help but feeling high strung. on the run. I can't help but feeling high strung. You say that it's just for fun. I can't help but feeling high strung. I think something has begun. I can't help but feeling high strung. Maybe you could be the one. I can't help but feeling high strung.
All right. Thanks for coming. Hope to see you soon. Take care.